The neutro-vibrant lead single, 90's Love, was released a few weeks back. In this second part, we're going to dissect the artistic choices. I will be discussing the themes, music video, set or stage design, costumes, and hair. All of the areas that we'll talk about today revolve around the two following themes: the 90s and hockey. The members turned into all-star hockey players for the music video. But why hockey? Why not basketball, the biggest game in the Olympics at that era? Theme. I have two theories as to why they choose hockey. Dramas and shows. Ice hockey has been a source of inspiration for films, television shows, and songs since 1930. But it wasn't after the 1990s that the sport gained recognition from society. Several notable Hollywood films, including Mystery Alaska and The Mighty Ducks, became a modern classic in the canon of sports flicks. The Mighty Ducks were successful enough to spawn two sequels, a cartoon series, and an NHL team named the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim, now the Anaheim Ducks. Ever since then, the number of hockey-themed movies has skyrocketed. Video games. 1990 was the third decade in industry history. It was a decade of marked innovation in video gaming. At the time, the most famous sports game was NHL 94. NHL 94 is an ice hockey game by EA Sports for the Genesis, Super NES, and Sega CD. NHL 94 is so legendary, it's still considered to be not only one of the greatest sports games of all time, but the best video games in general. From the unrivaled gameplay to awesome throwbacks, NHL 94 transcended pop culture, becoming key scene stealers in 90s hit films like Swingers and Mallrats. Now that we understand why they select hockey out of all the sports, we can move on to the music video. The music video features the members as all-star hockey players, riding on a Zamboni and breaking down slick choreography on the ice rink or the dressing room without missing a beat. The music video opens with a player introduction, with the members being featured in a hockey card, which is a type of trading card featuring one or more ice hockey players. It's typically found in countries where hockey is a popular sport and has a professional league. However, unlike the trading cards, they took a more collage approach, with the cutouts and the red tapes. This can be seen up until the middle of the music video. There are also scenes where the AR works its magic and various mascots of other teams dance. The mascots might be a tribute to Super Mario 64, a game that was an evolution for gaming in general. The 90s was a decade of transition from sprite-based graphics to full-fledged 3D graphics. The Nintendo 64's analog controller gave the characters a whole new perspective, with 360-degree views, more exploratory worlds, and a three-dimensional cast of characters. However, to give it a modern twist, digital images of a match also appear as if it were a video game, possibly referencing the NHL 15 edition, with all their similarities. The cinematography is another thing to pay attention to. The camera work in the ice rink is similar to how NHL matches are filmed. For instance, when the two players had a brawl, it was filmed from an upper angle, which makes sense because of the camera placements. There are two stationary cameras situated on tripods across each other on either side of the rink, behind the lower section of seats. A similar case is this goalie shot. There is a stationary camera, embedded in the crossbar, aimed at the goal line, as shown in the current camera system used in the Stanley Cup, which is the NHL's annual championship. And the other camera mounted at the corner of the goal, perhaps mimicking the 180-degree camera used in the 90s. Meanwhile, some of the other shots are just to complete the hockey aesthetics, and are often seen in movies, particularly for transitions. Speaking of transitions, the switch from one clip to another is seamless. Continuing their collage approach, which has this paper-like texture, notice how the screen would be crumpled up or be ripped apart. But other forms of transition are still done and edited very well. For example, in this shot, we can see Mark and then 10 through a whip transition. It looks like they are next to each other, and all the camera has to do is turn to the side. However, these are actually two different shots. But because the angles of both shots are similar, it looks like one smooth motion. Set and stage design. Because the theme is hockey, it's not a surprise if the set designs are all hockey related. Hockey rinks, dressing room, and lounge room filled with trophies, jerseys, and video games. All within the same color palette, which are red, navy blue, and white, with a hint of green and yellow, as seen on the barrier of the hockey rink. But their thoroughness, accuracy, and attention to detail help paint the vivid image of the 90s and hockey. They put so much thought into each set, for example, in the ice rink. Notice how in the barrier, there would be logos, and the name of each unit in NCT. There would even be stickers of their team logo, the dinosaur, or their title track name on the Zamboni and carpets. And in the lounge room, the decors are all staples in the 90s. There's a lava lamp, which had a resurgence in popularity in the 90s. We also see Win Win and Yang Yang playing video games on a Nintendo 64, which was known to be the hot item in 1996, plugged into a CRT TV. Although I wish the controller Win Win is holding isn't the PS4 controllers, instead, the yellow Nintendo 64 controller like Yang Yang. And I believe next to the TV is a Walkman, which is a portable cassette player that allowed people to listen to the music of their choice on the move back in the 90s. At the back, we can see more hockey-related decor pieces, like the jerseys being framed and hanged, as well as some hockey posters, medals, hockey sticks, and mini pennant banners. There also seems to be New York Islander bobbleheads on the bookshelf. As for their stage design, it's highly determined by the vibe and color palette for that day. For example, the bold red dressing room to match their colorful and bright apparel, or a VHS-inspired set to go with their all-black and all-white ensemble, or a bright yellow trading card background to complement their neon green and yellow attire. But they also have a blue trading card background to match the blue in Mark and Win Win's outfit. And for the chorus, a mix between the three colors. Or the abandoned subway was adorned with graffiti for the red, blue, and white outfit. Or electronic-related items, such as VHS tapes, arcade games with colorful wires, and CRT TVs to go with the paisley-patterned costumes. And finally, the screen filled with Air Jordans, skateboards, and a font that looks like a stainless steel tear sheet, all representation of the 90s and hip-hop culture to complement their green-orange outfit. Costumes. I will not go into details as I have planned to make a video specifically for their costumes, where I will go more in-depth and share my opinions. The early 1990s saw widespread interest in hip-hop and gangsta rap due to the influences of MC Hammer, Tupac Shakur, Eazy-E, Wu-Tang Clan, and Public Enemy. Considering so much of the early 90s hip-hop was defined by the East Coast or West Coast divide, it's no surprise that sports team apparel would become a big part of the hip-hop fashion of the era. The two most famous iconic images of 90s rappers wearing jerseys feature hockey teams. The late Tupac Shakur, in an infamous photo of him spitting on reporters, is rocking a red Detroit Red Wings jersey with a matching bandana. Snoop Dogg, who at the time was the hottest MC in the game, opted for a Pittsburgh Penguins jersey for his Gin and Juice video. As I mentioned, I won't go into details, so this is a brief rundown of the essential 90s hip-hop fashion that NCT wore. Let's start with the most obvious one that we can see through all their pieces, oversized clothing, which has made its comeback in today's style. But they styled it in many different ways. Like 10's denim on denim, which wasn't considered a fashion taboo back in the 90s. or their paisley and bandana printed outfits, possibly referencing the clothing from what was one of the biggest subgenres of hip-hop, gangsta rap. But one costume that is a major reference to the 90s, specifically the 90s Korean hip-hop, is this black ensemble. SM Entertainment's moneymaker back in the 90s was HOT and Shinhwa. The costume is reminiscent of both the group's most popular song, Warrior Descendant, by HOT, and Only One by Shinhwa. They merged the two costumes, and as a result, we can see both groups' influences. The beanie goggles and leather jacket is a tribute to HOT, although their jackets were probably made out of PVC. Whereas the black loose-fitted pants and boots are inspired by Shinhwa. Hair. NCT made several references to iconic 90s sitcoms, boy bands, and celebrities. They experimented with styles from different genres, but also gave it a modern twist. The 2020s saw a revival of the curtain bangs, which is the style that NCT often uses in their live performances. Another style that's associated with the 90s is the heartthrob, as previously worn by the heartthrobs of the 90s, now rocked by the heartthrob of NCT, aka all of them. Now that we've discussed the major styles that they did, let's take a look at each member individually. Being the artistic man he is, we can see Ten rocking several different hairstyles that are perfect representations of 90s hairdos. Such as the frizzy curtain bangs with a bandana, additional bowl cut, the colorful lacings on his highlights, blonde highlights, and many more. Gino also had the colorful lacings, white highlights, side parts, side bangs with a bucket hat, or wore a beret with strands of his fringe out. Despite his deep and masculine voice, Sungchan kept a cute look for this comeback, with his mullet, which is a staple of the 90s grunge. But Sungchan mostly did curtain bangs with his mullet, although we see other varieties such wavy curtain bangs, side parts, and slicked back with some strands left out. Mark wore these two styles very often, the disheveled bowl cut, and the heartthrob, but he had this claw-like bangs, and did put on a snapback one time. As for Yang Yang and Haechan, the two had disheveled bowl cuts and curtains bangs for most of the promotion. But in the music video, they were given various hair accessories, like a bandana, goggle beanies, and beanies. And for Win-Win, perhaps to maintain that cute neighbor next door image, he was given the curtain bangs and the heartthrob. So what do you guys like the most about 90s love? The music video? Dance? Outfits? Let me know in the comments section down below. But that is all for today's video. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and follow me on Twitter.